We work.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the sustainability track. Here I come over here. I'm standing right in front of Kelly. So this is the session that was promised. We are going to hear about the collaboration between OCP and the iMasons Climate Accord and what has come from all the work this year. So without further ado, I will hand it over to your presenters, and you guys can introduce yourselves as you go.
Sounds good. You want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Cornwell. I'm with Google Data Centers.
I'm Andrea Desimone with Schneider Electric.
Hi, I'm Lalit Joshi, Microsoft, leading the LCA work for cloud hardware.
Kelly Jensen, Meta.
Well, thank you everybody for attending. We are very excited to be announcing this today. So just as a kind of an overview for those who are not yet familiar with iMasons, iMasons is an industry coalition really with a mission to both measure and reduce the embodied carbon in the data center industry. We're really lucky to be working both of these organizations together. I think that that's how we make this kind of work. And one of the organizing challenges for this particular work stream that we have found is that there is a need for embodied carbon data in the data center industry. We need more data to be available. We need that data to be of higher quality, and we need to figure out how to standardize that data to make it more comparable, which is what we've been working on and what we'll continue to be working on. So just an overview of kind of the work that we've been doing over the past more than 6 months, but really kind of accelerating over the past 6 months, and Ryan will get into that, is trying to figure out a standardized carbon disclosure format for the industry. Our work within this work stream is focused on 3 major areas. The first is to survey existing programs and standards. We realize we're not the only folks working on this problem. It's an industry-wide problem. There are a lot of industry-wide and outside of our industry initiatives working on this, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel in any way. Be cognizant of what those different initiatives are and figure out ways that we can harmonize or work together. We're also working to define the disclosure format, and we're actually going to get a bit more into that today and encourage you to check out how we have defined that and how we're launching a kind of a first round of that. And then ultimately, we want to advance comparability. Right now, 2 different suppliers are giving you carbon disclosure information. If they're telling you a embodied carbon number for a very similar piece of equipment, they're not necessarily comparable apples to apples. And that's a challenge if we're going to try to make selections based on low carbon, which therefore helps us encourage the supply chain to decarbonize the supply itself. So just kind of a little more on that. What we're launching today is our version 1.1 of the supplier carbon disclosure form. What our goal is in this is to have a common format within the data center industry to simplify the disclosure process. This is not a final product, but we're using this as our way there. We're also hoping that this initiative will help us gain the kind of contextual information, the contextual data, like the method that you use to calculate it, whether you're using an economic model or running a life cycle assessment, to get to that data so we can start to build the kind of supporting data to help us kind of get to that comparability component in the end. And our ultimate intent is to get this data to be part of the OCP marketplace. We want this to be actionable. And I think that that's where both of these organizations working together, it's kind of one of those places we can find the synergy, both with the mission of the iMasons, the capabilities of OCP, and both of those communities working together. Yep. Hand it off to Ryan.
Okay, so this form actually came to life back at the regional summit in April. We had a workshop on the last day and had about 15 volunteers that came. And we literally put pen to paper and we started to design the format of the form and all the contents that we wanted to see in it. A few weeks later, about a month later, we had our version 1. And we circulated that with some select partners and asked for some feedback. And so I do want to take the time really quick to say thank you to everyone that really went above and beyond to provide very thorough, very good feedback. I think we were really lucky with the amount of effort that went into letting us know what we needed to do to improve it. So the feedback was amazing. And to be honest, it wasn't all positive. There was a lot of critiques. But that's a really good thing. That helped us make a really good improvement, I think, for version 1.1. So we consolidated all the feedback. We had more than we can count. And we used Google's Gemini to summarize the feedback for us and gave us 5 key themes that we needed to focus on. The first 3, the 3 bullets that you see there, we feel very confident that with version 1.1, we've addressed those issues. So the first one being around the resources, and let's call this like supplier burden. So for 1.1, we went in and we streamlined the form. We simplified a lot of the questions. The second bullet is around clarification. So for 1.1, we've gone in and added numerous examples to each of the questions and other clarifying statements to help the user understand exactly what was being asked of them. And then the third one is really around scope. So the first form that we had was a one-size-fits-all form, and we had some issues with that. And so now what we have is a dynamic form that, based on the type of equipment, the form will branch into a different set of questions. And then again, based on the the measurement methodology that was used, it branches into another set of questions. So those are the 3 areas where we've seen a lot of improvement for 1.1. The next 2, 4 and 5, the bullets there, these are areas we really need to focus on over the next 6 months when we have the pilot of 1.1. The 4th bullet there is around comparability. And so Andrea just mentioned that. We know this is a big challenge and it's a big concern from our suppliers. We actually have an entire subgroup that's just dedicated to this one challenge in particular. And then the final one is around the request to add additional questions. We want to keep it simple, so before we add more to the form, we want to go through this pilot, learn as much as we can, and make sure that we're adding only the most critical and appropriate questions. So value to industry participants. I think one thing that's really interesting about this work stream is that if we do it well, it's really a win-win for everyone. It's a win for the data center owners and operators with the standardization. It's also a win for suppliers, big and small, with the standardization. What I think was really important, though, is that to really achieve all the benefits that we have listed here and the value for everyone, and to maximize that, the form really needs to be thoughtful and well-designed. And the only way that's going to happen is if we have collaboration from the entire community. Which takes me to my next slide, which is that we are very proud to say, excited to announce that we are, as of today, launching our pilot for version 1.1 of the carbon disclosure form. We have thank you. We have a very ambitious target of 100 products from over 20 suppliers to actually fill out the form. So it's an ambitious goal, but I think with the help and support from the entire community, everyone in this room getting the word out, it's definitely something that we can achieve. I do want to make a shout out to Rob. Thank you very much. You're our first respondent to the form. So that's already 1 down. So I know we can do this, so please help us out. We're also working actively with OCP to get some incentives built in for participation. And our ultimate goal is to have full integration with the OCP marketplace. So more details to follow on that once we have that all sorted out. I think that's it. Is there anything else you want to add as far as the next steps from the group? For today? No? Okay. Well, then we'll go on to our...
Well, oh wait, I'll just add too, like we do want to kind of have all that data kind of gathered, those 100 responses, before we get to Dublin, right next year.
Yep.
Because by the time we're in Dublin for the OCP Regional Summit, we're hoping that we can launch a prototype of this being within the OCP marketplace. So you can really see the value that it's adding when you're purchasing or when you're using the marketplace to sell. We're hopeful, and I can give it back to you if you want, sorry.
No, that's it.
We're hopeful that there's gonna be an OCP Regional Summit in APAC. We think the capabilities amongst this community, we can do some supplier workshops, we can do some supplier training, because that's really where the rubber meets the road, right? We can't do this unless suppliers have information on how to do it. We'd love to be able to organize that in conjunction with OCP. And then I guess finally, we have commitments and we'll talk through those right now, and we hope that in the future that you'll be committed to using this as well.
One more quick call out. After you participate in the form, and we're going to provide the QR code, so it'll be super easy for you to do that, and you can see it at the Meta booth today. But also, we're going to be serving you a questionnaire in terms of your experience, your feedback. So this is going to be a continuous process, and the only way that we can make it successful is with that engagement, with that feedback and participation.
Okay. Next, we have some panel questions. So, Kelly, we'll start with you. Why is your company committing resources to this effort?
Yeah, so we're committing resources, and personally, I think this is super important. Let's say we're engaging 100 of our partners, our suppliers, and let's say those suppliers are engaging 100 more, and there's definitely overlap, right? Like those suppliers are engaging, and we're all asking for data, but we're all asking for it in different formats and different templates. And so the outcome of that is now you're sending all of your resources to fill out 80 different templates, and you're not focusing on improving the accuracy and the granularity of the data. And so we're really working to simplify and standardize this process to make sure that we're getting the best, most granular, most accurate data possible. And it's been through this collaboration that I think we can introduce that form. So that's why we're engaging.
Thank you, Kelly. So at Microsoft, we have taken some ambitious goal. By 2030, we want to be carbon negative. And to achieve those goals, we have multiple projects running within the different org within Microsoft. And that's where this data is very much useful. Like once we have this data coming from supplier, this is the product level embodied carbon emission number we are talking about. Once we have this data, we can go and refine our projects, we can go and validate, we can speed up those initiatives with this kind of data, right? So once we have this data, we want to validate the work that we are doing, and we want to improve that work over the period of time. Not just that, like this data will open up a two-way communication between data center industry and the suppliers, right? So that we can share the feedback that we have based on this data, and then they can go and work with that. And what we can also hear from them, right? What kind of work they're doing based on this data. So that's what we are expecting, to get this data and improve the collaboration, bring transparency, and have the two-way dialogue.
Yeah, so real quick, I mean, it's the same thing for Google. I do want to highlight, though, that I think we all know that tackling Scope 3 is a huge challenge. And what's special about this work stream is that we have the support and backing of OCP and the iMasons Climate Accord. And so I think this work stream is positioned really well, in a great position to actually move the needle and move things forward. So it's just another really great aspect of this particular work stream.
Thank you. And for Schneider, you know, from a supplier's perspective, we've been doing a lot of this work. We've been calculating our carbon footprint on our products for a long time. But we want to know that we have a standardized way throughout the industry to be measuring that. We want to know how we're performing against other data center vendors. A rising tide lifts all boats, you know. If we're all working towards the same thing and we have kind of a standardized way to do this and we're all being transparent, we can all make better decisions. And that's what we hope for the industry. And I would say, you know, for any other vendors that are considering this, that I hope you do participate. The incentive is in visibility as well. You know, when we get this on the OCP marketplace, you'll be your customers will be able to see that you're, you know, disclosing this work, or the work that you're doing, disclosing your carbon figures, and it helps spur that kind of customer supplier engagement.
All right, that takes us to our call to action.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So the QR code is already available to you. You can scan, the form is open to all. You can go and, if you have already done LCA for your product, you can go in and enter the details. But we want you to review the form. If you have, in the end, there's a feedback question. If you have any feedback, please share that feedback, because it's a continuous work. We meet on a regular basis. We'll be improving the form. Apart from that, we have Workstream call, which is open to subgroup. If you want to join that subgroup, you can go to OCP website. Under sustainability, you will find this project, and please feel free to join that subgroup. We want to take as much feedback as we can take, so that, you know, because you will be the one who will be using this form at the end of the day, right? So you would want to contribute in the creation of this form. And if you are a data center operator or into cloud business, please go and check with your supplier, share this form with them, ask them to fill it, because this is one of the form that they can go and consider. It's not just embodied carbon emission number we are asking for, but some of the important details associated to the LCA. So you can go and ask them to fill this form. And if you are a supplier, fill this form and let your customer know that you have already submitted the information through the OCP marketplace or through the OCP database. Their customer can access the data. And yes, we are committed. We expect you to commit to this form. Ask the data from your supplier, and if you are supplier, please fill the data. If you have already done LCA for your products, it would be good for the customers as well as for you, because you don't need to, what Andrea said, you don't need to fill your 10 different form coming from 10 different customers, right? And then there is a link. You can submit feedback through the form. You can submit feedback through the mail as well. We'll get the response, and when we are presenting in doubling, we believe your feedbacks will be considered and it will reflect in the form. And what Kelly said, this is already at booth B2. We'll be there until tomorrow afternoon. If you have any question about the form, after scanning, you will get to see the form, right? If you have any feedback, any question, please come over there. We'll be happy to answer. And I know by this time you have heard about LCA a lot. You already had crash course from Julie in the morning. But if you have any question about LCA, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Questions?
Oh yeah, Q&A. There's looks like we have almost 5 minutes.
Oh God.
So questions, anyone?
Hi, Natalie Bates, Energy Efficient High Performance Computing Working Group. You mentioned the collaboration with iMasons. If we go to their website, are we going to get the same link and request to test this form?
Yes. And on the iMasons website as well, there's more information about some of the different methodologies that you might want to use to come up with this carbon number. You know, we've done some case studies on life cycle assessment, on using the TM65 SIBC method on an economic input-output model, which we realize is not exhaustive, but it's a good start.
Yeah, and I made a little joke earlier about the feedback being critical, but honestly, there were some teams and folks that went way above and beyond and wrote very, very thorough summaries of why the questions were good or bad or what didn't work. So I assure you that every bit of feedback that we get, we will really make sure we take that in and we are making
Use
sure
our
that
AI tools to summarize them.
yeah.
So yeah.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Teresa Nick, Microsoft. I was just wondering if this form was limited to equipment suppliers or if it was also usable by colo providers, and if not, if there's any plans to maybe have a branch for colo providers.
For colos to fill it out as a supplier. You know, we have not built that in yet, but it's a really good point, and something that we can look to incorporate in our next version of this model. I think that's a great point.
Thank you.
One question and one comment and one very enthusiastic point of support. First of all, is those of us who do work with, you know, I work for Seagate. My name is Ari Vanderhoeven. I work with Seagate Technology. Most of you know me. You know, we do have to work with our suppliers, and in some cases, due to economic, you know, supplier relationships, we actually have to pay them to help report better, and that's something that's going to be a big leap for the industry. Everything you're doing here is so important. Big note of support is we are not successful here, if you look at the rate of carbon emissions across the compute industry and the data center industry, everything that's going on out here, everything on the floor, the 6,000 people that are here, everything stops. And that's coming sooner than we think. So I just want to say, very enthusiastic for what you're doing. Thank you.
Thanks.
And a big thanks to you for all of your feedback and engagement and support. It's been helpful along the way. And I don't think we said this, but for Meta, my team specifically, we are engaged in the hardware space. And so if you're a hardware supplier to Meta, this is something that you'll see as a requirement going forward. So we want your participation, we want your feedback. It's a great opportunity for us to kick off a collaboration if we haven't already done so.
Hi. So, of course, we have spoken about this form outside of the presentation also. So there was just a thought that I just had. I wanted to check with you folks. So this form can be used by, the suppliers to the data center for filling out the information about their product. How iterative in the chain is it? For example, the suppliers to the data centers have their own suppliers who likely have their own suppliers. So how iterative is it in terms of how far back in the chain can it go, according to the fields, et cetera, that are being thought of in the form?
That's a great question. So this is really focused on the data center operator being the consumer of this information. We buy components from our suppliers. What we see this form as is that Schneider Electric as a supplier, it's our responsibility to enumerate the embodied carbon of all of the different components that we're purchasing upstream of our supply chain, all the materials and components, and putting those into an embodied carbon number for the single piece of switchgear or UPS or whatever it is that we're selling to you. So we're not segmenting this out for higher up in the supply chain. This is really a tool for the data center industry and data center operators to have that information at hand.
And just to add on that, like when you're doing LCA, right, you cover your upstream supply chain. So I believe when they're sharing the number, they are considering the carbon emission number their supplier did while manufacturing those products. So it will be, yes. So it's a kind of chain reaction we are triggering here, that we reach out to our supplier and then they reach out to their suppliers to submit this number. But we are kind of hoping, it will start a wave, where people are taking LCA seriously or getting LCA done for the product that they have in their inventory and submit the data through this form or, in whatever, this form only. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.